In our lower body, we have three main joints which are mainly talked about by people. Obviously, we have other stuff like our foot has a bunch of joints that not many people speak about, but the three main big joints are the ankle joint, the knee joint, and the hip joint. And all of our muscles around the joints are made for us to be able to move the joints, move the bones closer and further away from each other. So if we look at the main three joints, ankle, knee, and hip, their two main functions of each of the joint are flexion, which means for two parts of the bodies to get closer. For example, knee flexion is the hamstring and the calf getting closer, so that joint is closing. The hip is that the quad and the abs are getting closer, so that joint is closing. And the ankle is the top of the foot and the front of the shin getting closer, so that joint is closing. That is flexion. And extension is the other way, where the joint is opening. Obviously there's other functions that go into it, but those are the two main functions of each of the joints. But what we see nowadays is that one of these functions is trained and not the other. Triple extension is trained. So we train our calves, we train calf raises a lot, we train our quads, we train squats, we train box squats, we train leg extension, we train Bulgarian split squats, and then we train hip extension, hip thrusts, RDLs, good mornings, all this different kind of stuff. But the one that isn't trained anywhere near as much is triple flexion. So ankle flexion. How many tibialis raises have you done? Knee flexion. This is probably the one that's trained the most out of them because people do hamstring curls. But to be honest, I've never seen people doing Nordics. Hamstring curls are not often in the program. They're often left to the end if they are in a program, but this one's a little bit more well known. And then hip flexion raises, Garhammer raises. How many people are doing this in the gym? So we know that the less structurally balanced we are, so say we have an imbalanced leg to leg, or in this case, flexion to extension, the bigger chance we have to get injured when we are playing our sport. So today I'm going to talk about what triple flexion is, ankle flexion, knee flexion, and hip flexion, why we should start training these, and how we can start training these to be able to keep our bodies healthy if we're coming back from some kind of knee injuries, why we are using these exercises. So let's go through them one at a time. Let's talk about the ankle joint first. And this is a big problem anyway in the fact of we are training our hips a lot, but the further down the chain we go, the less we are training them and the more we just put it to one side. So calves are trained, but again, they're put to the end of the session and people don't treat them in the same way that our bigger lifts such as squats or the deadlifts or that kind of stuff higher up the chain. So what this does is create imbalance, and we are actually manufacturing injuries lower down the chain in the ankles and in the knees because of this. We get big in the thighs, we get strong hips, we get strong quads, we get strong hamstrings, mainly in hip extension, and then our knees and ankles suffer because of it. So the first one I'm going to talk about is ankle flexion, tibialis raises. In sport, 80% of injuries happen in deceleration or cutting. The first muscle to experience tremendous force when decelerating is the tibialis muscle. If you look at deceleration, the heel slams and then we lower the toes. If you look at a tibialis raise, this is literally the same function here. So if we have a weak tibialis, that force can't be handled in the tibialis. It has to go somewhere. And if we're coming back from a major knee injury, like maybe people in sport don't need to train this as much because they are getting this load when they are decelerating in football. But the people that haven't played sport in a while, that are coming back from knee injuries, that have weak tibialises, they need to start training this in the gym to be able to have that strength. Because if we can't handle this force in the tibialis, that force has to go somewhere, and where is it going to go? It could go to the knees, it could go to the bones, it could be the reason why we have shin splints, ankle problems. So there's three ways to train this. The first is to be a wall tibialis raise, and this takes the least amount of equipment. It's maybe the most friendly for most people to get into because you can just put your butt up against a wall. The limitation of this is the limited range of motion. We are not training the ankle through its full range of motion. However, you can train these as long as you are doing tibialis stretches where you are sitting down in a Caesar pose and stretching out that tib so that you get that long range stimulus in itself. The second way is then a tib bar. This invention was originally by Bob Guider, who was a bodybuilder back in the days, but then it got dismanufactured, and then Knees Over Toes guy brought the tibialis back to life, started putting a load of spotlight on it, and people reached out saying what needs to be invented, and they started manufacturing tib bars again. So this allows us to train through the full range of motion with anyone, because you can not load it at all, or you can load it heavier, and it's measurable as well. So this is really the preferred method. However, what if we have imbalances side to side? What if only one knee's injured? What if we only haven't been slamming force into that tib in one of our legs? My personal favorite is attaching a dumbbell to the foot with something, attaching a weight to the foot on a single leg. So this could be with a floss band, which is what I use. This is a tiny bit tedious, but to be honest, it's 20 seconds of effort to be able to get gains, which I'm not mad at 20 seconds on my day. You can have it to be able to put on a floss band, right? What this does is allow us to train side to side, so we can see if there is any imbalances. Again, the full range of motion is there, so this is really, really the best. It is more tedious than the tib bar, and it's more tedious than the tib raise, but it may be the best way to train them. The standards then, the measurable standards, we don't have one on the wall tibialis raise because it's impossible really to measure it. Maybe it's how far you go out, but different people, different heights, all that kind of stuff. So the ideal for the tib bar is 20% of our body weight for 20 reps over time, but to be honest, we can go higher than that as well. These are just base standards. Then for the single leg dumbbell is 12.5% of our body weight on each leg for 20 reps. So for me, if I was 62 kg, that would be 10% of my body weight would be 6.2 kg. So around 7, 8, 9 kg is probably where I want to get to on the standard, which is where I'm at. So perfect. So that is the ankle flexion, right? The opposite of that is ankle extension, which is the calf raise. But we are talking about triple flexion today. So ankle flexion is their deceleration gains. Amazing. Second thing then is knee flexion. Obviously, this is the one which I said more people actually end up training in the gym. But at the same time, this is so important, and a lot of people miss it. I look at people who have had 2, 3, 4 ACL tears, and they're not training knee flexion, and I'm like, this is crazy. Like, how are we not training knee flexion? One of the main functions of our knee, and yet we're coming back from a knee injury. So this is really, really big. So if we look at the ACL, the way the ACL attaches, it attaches from the back of the thigh bone to the front of the shin bone. The hamstring crosses over the back of the knee joint. Charles Poliquin used to say that knee flexion is like the second ACL. So the stronger that we get in knee flexion, the less likely chance we have of tearing our ACL. And we know, as earlier I said, that 80% of knee injuries happen in deceleration, and eccentric hamstring strength is so crucial in deceleration. What trains this really well? Nordics. The ways that we would start to train this is first with a lying leg curl, because this gets a full range of motion through the knee flexion, and it can be loaded to anyone's ability, so you don't have to be really advanced like you do in something like a Nordic. From there, we would start to do 2 up, 1 down leg curls. This would mean that we are getting more eccentric load through one of the legs. We are 40% stronger in eccentric phase than we are in concentric phase. So on the way up, we are going to flex with 2 legs, and then we're going to lower down with 1 leg. This then allows us to start going into the Nordic. We want to build up loads and loads of strength here before we do go into Nordic, but this is going to help us build the ability there. The Nordic then is the gold standard for knee flexion strength and protecting our ACL, especially in the way we do it, where we fully control the range of the motion, get into the end range motion. Because the Nordic, if we look at the difference between a hamstring curl is hardest when we are in that top position, contracting as much as possible, whereas the Nordic is getting hardest in the lengthened position, in the 10 to 30 degrees of knee extension. And there is the position where the ACL tears the most. So this Nordic curl is a test of how much we can hold our body weight in this end range of motion. And again, if you have a Nordic bench, amazing. Gyms need to start getting a Nordic bench, because you can use the incline, make the super scalable, and then help people progress and reach that end range of motion. But like just chucking people onto a flat Nordic, like most people aren't going to do it to start with, right? So that's a long-term goal, the Nordic. But lying leg curls and 2 up, 1 down leg curls to start with, absolutely fine with me. And we have athletic examples of this as well, right? This isn't just important in protection, it's important in our athleticism. We have Marty St. Louis, who got to elite standards on Nordic and was one of the fastest players on the ice throughout his entire career, especially as he got older. Jonathan Edwards done Nordics once a week for over 10 years, and he beat the triple jump record, which is ridiculous amounts of force. Cheetah in the NFL, one of the fastest athletes in the NFL, and he can rep out Nordics, right? So this knee flexion is super important. Third thing then is hip flexion. There was a study done on sprinters, and it showed that the 2 biggest differences between regular people and elite sprinters were 1, their glutes, and 2, their hip flexors, mainly the psoas. So the hip flexor is what lifts up the leg. So developing really strong hip flexors allows us to run a lot faster. So this triple flexion, it's not just this thing to protect us, it is this thing to be able to help us get faster as well. But you think, like, if you can't lift up your legs properly, you're going to be running around like you're stuck in the mud. And that's going to put unnecessary force on your knees. So training our hip flexors is going to allow us to have better form when we are in our sport, when we are running, when we're doing all this kind of stuff, and put less stress on the knees. Amazing. And again, this is one that I don't see a lot of people training at all. People train that as, but it's usually crunches, right? We train the opposite way up. So the main ways that we want to be able to train this is 1, with weight on foot, single leg. So you can use a kettlebell, you could attach a dumbbell to the foot with a floss band, like I said before, and you're just lifting up your leg, crunching at the hips. The second way is then reverse squats, and you'll need a reverse squat strap with this, where you can attach a cable machine to our feet and then hold something behind us. This is really, again, the gold standard for the hip flexors for us, because we're getting more range of motion, and it allows us to really test the strength of people's psoas. The standards over time on that are going to be 50% of body weight at least for 20 reps on the cable machine. With the single leg hip flexor raise, that's going to be 20% of our body weight for 20 reps over time, single leg. The third option then, again, if we only have body weight and we don't have equipment, is bar hammer raise. This what mainly came to my attention through Charles Poliquin, but Ben Patrick also uses this one as well. This is going to be more of a short range of motion, but in combination with the ATG split squat, you're getting most of the ranges there. So you can still train the hip flexor in a really good way. On this, you're going to be hanging from a bar and lifting your knees up. Again, targeting that psoas, targeting our hip flexors, targeting our lower abs. So that is triple flexion. Training this is going to decrease our chance of injuries, is going to increase our athleticism and keep us more balanced. So it's super important. Being structurally balanced is a major factor in injury reduction, in injury resilience, right? As human beings, we're never going to be perfectly balanced, but aiming towards it is always a good idea. I hope this video helps. If you have any questions, please drop them in the comment section down below. If you do want to work one-on-one with us to be able to rebuild your knees, please apply in the description.